some of them after really long time. It's also great to see many new faces. Welcome, and I do hope that you will be able to stick with us, not only through this webinar, but also through all the other events we are planning. As Virak mentioned, very soon new events are going to come, new activities are going to be happening. So here in a nutshell, I'm going to share just a second. Now I have to find what I have to share. And okay, I think you see my presentation.
Yes, you can see.
Okay, so I'm going to, no, sorry, I'm not sure what I'm showing right now. Okay, so let's just repeat the task again. Okay, so for the purposes of my incompetence of properly sharing, I will just leave it the way it is. So what to say about our project? I have prepared a very few lines where actually now I recall that I forgot to mention the project duration, which is actually one of more important aspects to share with you. We took off in June this year, not this year, but last year, meaning in 2022, and the project is going to be 3 years old, meaning in 3 years' time we will going to conclude it. In that time, a lot of work is going to be done, but the first question actually arises on why and what are we actually doing. As you can see from the title, we are going to be focused on developing skills, what kind of skills and why these skills are needed. It's actually the response that we came across doing own research and reading a lot of other people's research. And you can see here a few statements on why we considered this topic is important. So we actually are realizing, on one hand, that the European Union is recognizing IPR, meaning intellectual property rights, as one of the drivers of innovation. And in that context, innovation coming from industry sector, coming from entrepreneurs and small and medium enterprises, as they result to be the backbone of European economy. So in that context, we are actually aiming to mitigate the situations where we have knowledge that an average entrepreneur doesn't distinguish between patent, industrial design and a trademark, meaning doesn't distinguish between different types of IPR, let alone know how to use it in their own advantage and what are actually potentials for exploitation. More on that will be delivered a bit later on. My colleague Christian will share with you the results of the survey that we did within our project, meaning in the first part of the project, when we collected the data from different target groups. We asked them a vast amount of questions, and we also got a vast amount of responses from them. But nevertheless, we consider, and it is still evident, that there are many reasons why currently entrepreneurs and business managers are reluctant in using IPR, either because they consider patents. Sorry? Okay.
No, sorry. Yeah.
Okay. What I wanted to say is that there are many reasons why currently entrepreneurs and managers are not exploiting this possibility, or do exploit it, but to a smaller extent, and could use it to foster their innovation activities. There are also other aspects, meaning lack of knowledge how to use the databases, digital illiteracy, language barriers, and within our project, we are going to tackle at least some of them. So, who are we in the consortium? You can see it here. partners spreading from north to south, hence the discussion about current winter situation in Norway. As colleagues are waiting for the sun, I actually had to close my windows today because there is so much sun that my eyes hurt. Currently here in Slovenia, and I can imagine colleagues in Greece having even more sun and enjoying their current winter. So you can see here a very rich consortium. We all have our competences. There are plenty of educational institutions, higher education institutions, and vocational education institutions. Why? Because our target groups among already mentioned entrepreneurs are also higher education teachers and students, along with vocational education organizations and teachers who teach the vocational education. We also have some data experts and data management experts who are going to take care of the more, let's say, technical part hidden behind one of the work packages. So, as mentioned, what do we do? I'm not going to read the full presentation, but nevertheless, what I would like to emphasize again is that we are actually targeting the skills. We will develop curriculums to be taught in higher education institutions and in vocational education institutions in order for vastest amount of people who are actually going to become a workforce, who are going to enter the labor market, to be properly trained, to know what is this field about, to know how to help and how to contribute the organizations they are joining in. Of course, we are going to not only teach the younger generations, but also contribute to upskilling of the older generations. Let's say tackling or touching the lifelong learning, where actually skills, where we believe the skills can be gained throughout active working time of every person. So apart from that, our different teaching models will address, as I mentioned, different pedagogical approaches. We are going to use some innovative options on how to deliver the contents to our target groups, because we believe in a contemporary society that we have to, if we advocate innovation, we have to make sure that we are innovative ourselves. And I'm really looking forward to those, let's say, to some extent, piloting activities. Nevertheless, we are going to develop a technological platform, which is going to be named IP Monitor. This IP Monitor will assist IPR users, well, especially the ones that we targeted, but it will work as a, let's say, help in retrieving relevant IP information, of course, based on their own needs. So how we are going to do all of that? We have three, as you can see it here, three main tasks. I actually used a tick here because we already did a detailed IP for business skills needs analysis. As mentioned before, Christian will share some conclusions and, let's say, most interesting findings. We will develop IT tool, as I mentioned it, IP Monitor. It will be a navigation online tool which will help the users retrieve the most relevant data from the field of it will actually help them navigate through different patent databases. So at the end, as I mentioned before, designing and delivering innovative pedagogical tools, innovative approaches, and courses, of course, dedicated to so-called green IP, contributing towards circularity and sustainability. We will develop simulation lab and IP co-design gem. Here you can see in a complex picture how all of this is going to be structured and how the work is going to be done. So our work is shaped in a classical work package way. If I use here to explain a little bit, so the first task was done within work package 2, meaning the data that we collected is going to be used for all the future work. So we are now in a phase where we are developing the technological tool, and we are starting to do the courses and module design. So this courses and module design is actually the main task that we are doing right now. And then you can see in the subsequent months of the project also the simulation lab and the co-design GEM workshops and events. But alongside all of this, we have a vast number of outreach events like this one today. So this webinar is the first of many, and we are going to timely give you timely information about our work, about how the work is progressing, how we are continuing, and also more content related information in terms of how can you use these tools and how can you use the modules that we develop for own needs and for the needs of your partners, if you will disseminate the information further on. So how to get in touch with us? So this is now a bit of a propaganda for our project. We have a joint email, so you can write to us. So the email that reaches all the partners in the consortium, or just my personal email. You can follow us on the social media, so either Facebook or LinkedIn. Here are the links. Maybe in a few minutes I will post the links in the chat so that you will be able to click from your own computer. We also have the website, and on the website it is available our newsletter subscription. So for now you have missed 2 newsletters we already distributed to our subscribers. So if you subscribe now, you will be able to receive the first one that is going to be prepared in the next months. So I'm not sure whether this was enough minutes for me, but I would like to thank you and give the floor back to Virak.
Yeah, thank you, Tamara. As Tamara mentioned, we already conducted the survey that Christian will present you. So, Christian, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Just to take, I mean, usually Tamara and I synchronize somehow without us, speaking about that. Of course, I will try to. I will probably try to restart my connection because my computer wants to give special preferences to Team for me to share this, if you don't mind.
Okay.
So be back in a second.
Okay, maybe if I take the word while waiting for Christian. Sorry for me disappearing like that. Apparently I clicked the wrong button. So for any questions or remarks, feel free to say. Or a vast criticism, you can also do that. Okay, so no criticism there.
No bad news is good news.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we might, until we wait for Christian, we could also mention, right, that, or emphasize, because you were talking about this, Tamara, that for everyone who would want to know more, right, not only do we have these future webinars, but the courses will give you an in-depth understanding and give you the opportunity to work with the tools and kind of try things on. So also kind of learning by doing experience with experts and so on. So for all of you that are here and kind of keen on knowing more, and it's going to be online, it's going to be in English. So, I'm thinking for most of you, then we didn't do any barriers you couldn't, no hurdles you couldn't jump over to join in should you want to. And I guess, Tamara, as we go along with these webinars, Tamara will also update you on anything new on the partners, the tools, the opportunities that we'll have in the future as well. So yeah, just thought since we're waiting, we might as well as emphasize that as well, because webinars are kind of a limited version of great for first insights and kind of have discussions as well, but a course or a module that gives you a little bit more time to kind of work on things, as well as maybe to connect with other people who are also interested in IPR, and also especially topics related to how I can use IP for supporting the sustainability transitions, the circularity transitions in particular. Yeah, that's it. I don't know if Christian is back yet, but if not, maybe we do a little bit of a shift in the program.
Yeah, he's not
so
here.
we don't wait. Yeah, so we don't wait too long if we have the next speaker ready. So
yeah, András, are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh. So I would like to give the floor to András Haszonics, who is an innovation manager at Danubia IP Innovation Consulting Ltd. And he will talk about why and how to protect creative creations.
Okay, thank you very much, Virak. Thank you very much for having me for today. Actually, as it was already told, I'm working for Danubia Patent and Law Office, and I have the pleasure to be with you here today on behalf of the Hungarian Intellectual Property Office, who were so kind to delegate me to speak to you today, actually, about the world of intellectual property. Telling the truth, when I was preparing today's presentation, I didn't know about for whom I'm going to be speaking. So for the ones professional in the world of IP, either IP experts or IP lawyers or IP managers, probably I will not tell you too much surprising, but this presentation is going to be, as told, a teaser, like why is it worth to get into the world of IP, basically for university administratives and researchers, and also was basically targeted for small and medium-sized enterprises or larger ones who haven't yet recognized the importance of IP. So let's get started. I'm trying to share the presentation. It might take a bit of time, just a moment. But let's hope we succeed. Okay. You don't have to see anything yet, but soon. Yep. Do you see the presentation?
Yes.
Wonderful. So today's the first event actually of this really interesting series of event, IPR4SC. And this is going, we are going to deal about the importance of intellectual property, also called IP, protection for creative minds and innovative industries. Now, first of all, I have been working with IP for about 20 years already. And what I have seen is that when you want to grab someone's interest, it's not the details on the intellectual property or the protection which interests the people, but first we have to convince them why is it worth to deal with IP, what is in it for them. And now, therefore, I would try to start with the question, why and how to protect creative creations? Well, if we start from a corporate point of view, then the elements of the corporate value are twofold. First, there are the material assets, also called brick and mortar assets, which might compose from real estate, land and buildings, equipment, machinery, inventory, cash, marketable securities, and other things like that. So basically, these are the hardware elements of your corporate value, which is depicted on your balance sheet. Now, on the other hand, you might find the so-called immaterial assets, which are rights with commercial value. What do they compose of? Well, actually, option rights belong to here. Also, access rights, like mostly resource exploitation rights, like mining rights, broadcasting rights, transfer rights, and similar ones. And there are two other really important elements, which are intellectual property rights and know-how, franchise, brand value, and goodwill. Now, these are the areas which are mostly relevant for us. And if we take a closer look on the spread on the proportion of these two kinds of assets, I mean material assets and immaterial assets, then we find a strange, how would I say, trend in the last 50 years. But first of all, let me start with a slogan of Mark Getty, Getty Image co-founder, the company who provides services for you under the name of Getty Images. He said once, IP is the oil of the 21st century. Now, let's see if he was right. There is a survey, an ongoing survey for quite long, as you see, created by Ocean Tomo, and they are measuring the components of the Standard & Poor's 500 companies' market value. Now, Standard & Poor's 500 companies are, let's say, the most successful US companies. And you see here that we are talking about tangible assets and intangible assets, the same category as we have been talking about in the previous slide, that in 1975, the intangible asset portion of the balance sheet was quite marginal, like below 20%. But as time passed by, we see that by about 2020, so a few years back, the importance, the proportionate value of the intangible assets was up to 90%, and the brick and mortar and hardware-based asset fraction was just 10%. So we might say that it was a secret revolution, which we might have not even recognized, turning from the material values to immaterial or intangible asset values in terms of company. So therefore, if we just neglect our intangible assets, including IP rights, then we lose quite a lot of the value of our company. And of course, what we neglect, that we cannot manage. And if we can't manage, let's say, 50 to 90% of the value of our company, that's a disaster. Therefore, it's quite important to be able to capture, to recognize our intellectual properties and to manage them right. Now, here comes a small video. Let's see if it works through the internet. We have tested it, it worked. Hopefully it will do the same now.
We can't hear the video.
Oh, the video cannot be heard, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's a problem. Then I just tell you what was told in the video. Well, actually, it was mentioned that intellectual property is quite an important part of nowadays economy and the value of either individual creations or of companies. More and more important is going to be the economic benefit generated by intellectual property. There are certain surveys in the European Union that about 40% of the European incomes are somehow related to intellectual property, and therefore it is very important to take care and to take control of them. It was already mentioned that we have to secure those rights via intellectual property protection on our creative creations, and there were listed 4 types of methods of protection, like trademarks, patents, design, and copyrights. Now, this next slide, which is, let's say, called after Shrek, who said, ogres are like onions, have layers, have many layers. Now, intellectual property protection should work also like that. And why, you might ask? Well, I will show you here a study or a survey created by the European Patent Office and the European IP organization, and they have concluded that trademarks alone, so if you have trademarks and apply those commercially, then your corporate value might rise about 10%. Now, if you combine trademarks and patent protection and you apply them actively or even aggressively, then your company's value or value generation potential might go up to about 17%. Now, if you apply trademarks and designs together, then your corporate value or the possibility to create a value might go up to about 27%. However, if you join these 3 protection methods and you apply trademarks, patents, and design in your commercial activities, then your profit generation might go up about 1/3, so 33%. Now, this is quite an important message. Without the application of these methods, these protection methods, we might lose our edge of competitiveness. So therefore, I would say it's rather important to use IP. Now, the second question, which is going to be addressed, and already was addressed a bit already before, was if we are dealing with technology, design, art, or business, then which protection methods might suit us the best? Now, we can group or divide intellectual property rights into 2 subsections again. First of all is copyright. Now, copyright protection is derived from the individual and original nature of a creation, but this is established via the creation of the work, thus no registration is required. Therefore, we might say it's a free option for protecting your rights. Though, when you apply those copyrights, so integrating it into your business process flows, creating the necessary legal document, of course, it takes up money. But at least it's not related to obtaining the rights itself. And it has another really significant feature, is that it has got a global effect. So it's not just local or regional. This is not necessarily the case in the other group of intellectual property rights, which we call industrial property rights. It's in the name that it's more related to the industrial economy. So therefore, under this industrial property rights portfolio, you can protect technical, functional inventions with patents, for example, aesthetic, ergonomic features of your product by design, and the identification of your goods and services. So basically, it's a commerce tool with trademarks. Now, with these kind of protection, registration is required. It means that they do not generate automatically. You have to apply for them, and it might cost you money. And additionally, it is a territorial protection, which means it doesn't provide global effect. The protection is available or get active where you apply and get granted for. Now, if we go into a bit more detail, then here we see in the top row the most important forms of protection: patent, trademark, design, copyright, and also we might talk about know-how and trade secret. Let's see in the second row what kind of subject material it is able to protect. So what kind of inventions or creations could be protected by them? Well, patents are definitely for technical inventions, as we see. Trademarks, on the other hand, are for science. Designs are for non-technical appearance of the whole or part of our products, while copyright is, as already mentioned, is an authorial, protects authorial works like literature, science, and artwork. On the other hand, know-how and trade secret might protect technical and non-technical elements, technical, economic, or organizational knowledge of your company or of yourselves. What are the criteria of the protection? Now, in case of patents, your invention might be novel, might contain an inventive step, and must be able to apply in any kind of industries. In case of trademark, it must be distinctive, so different from others, and have got the ability to distinct your sign from all the others. Must be representable, as you have to register it, you have to record it somehow, so this is why representable is quite important, and it must not be descriptive. It means that it must not come from the quality, quantity, origin, or any other features of the product in relation to it is used. Now, designs must be new and had an individual character, quite similar to trademarks. Copyrights must be individual and original. And in case of know-how or trade secret, the major criteria for making use of it is that it can be held secret. So those creations that might get known and studied after putting on the market, then those are not good subject for know-how or trade secret. Those which can be learned by reverse engineering are also not a good candidate for know-how or trade secret. For those, you might turn for the patent protection probably. Now, territoriality. In case of patents, we have got national, international, and regional routes or ways to obtain our protection. Unfortunately, the international has been skipped here because of the shortage of place. So sorry. In case of trademark and designs, there is a national, European, and international routes to obtain. In case of copyright and know-how, we are lucky because those are universal, as we don't have to register them. Now, the period of protection might be also important for a company or for an individual who apply for them. Now, in case of patents, usually it's 20 years, but in rare cases, and a 5 years additional protection period might be granted, usually for drug companies. Now, trademarks have got an unlimited life cycle, but they have to be renewed in every 10th year. In case of design, the maximum run for them is 25 years, 5 times 5 years. You have to renew them. But in the European Union, there is also so-called unregistered community design system, which protects your design for 3 years without application. Now, copyrights usually runs for 70 years from the death of author, but that's usually because that is regulated by national law. Know-how and trade secret could be valuable and generate profit for your company unlimited unless they are leaked out. So as long as you can keep them secret, they can produce value for your company or for you. Now, what are the costs related to these types of protection? Now, in case of patents, the relative cost is significantly high. I tell you this because it doesn't mean that it must be high. It means that if you compared to the cost of the income of the product that are linked to patent, it can be just proportionate, but before you get your product or patent protected creation to the market, it might take some resources. Now, trademarks are relatively low in terms of budgetary requirements, so the costs are quite low or cheap. Similarly, that's true for designs, and as in case of copyright and know-how, we have already mentioned, theoretically there is no costs related because you don't have to register them. So therefore, they might be the cheapest, but it's not necessarily true way of protecting your creation. Okay, this might be let's say the message for today. So if you just remember this one slide, then we have came today not in vain. Now we are going to talk about very briefly about the two intellectual property rights groups, copyright and its industrial property rights. Let's start with copyright. Where copyright protection relates to literary works like fictional, academic, scientific and journalistic work, and also public speeches. It also relates to scientific works like softwares, databases, maps, cartographic creations, architectural work and plans, technical structures, design, applied artwork, design, and industrial designs. And it relates also to artistic works like plays, choreographic works, musical composition, radio and television plays, cinematographics, phonographics works, drawings, painting, sculpting, costume, and scannery. This protect actually authorial works in which had any individual and original creations originating from creative intellectual property. It doesn't depend on any quantitative or qualitative or aesthetic characteristic of any value judgment as regarded the standard of creation, which is quite good actually. Copyright protection doesn't extend to facts, therefore, for example, daily news items are unprotected. Ideas, principles, theories, procedures, operating methods, and mathematical operations are definitely excluded from copyright protection, so these are not protectable by this means. It protects actually not the content, but the expression, how it was laid out. The protection is generated on the creation, in other words, fixation of the work, and it is not related to any registrative action. And last for, as we have mentioned, usually for 70 years from the death of the authors. And it offers protection against willful copying, therefore grants no exclusive right of use. Now, it was mentioned that it lasts for around 70 years after the death of the author. Now, let's see how that can dance. Here we see the best earning dead copyright holders into 2021, and we see that annually it's possible to earn about 500 million USD. Roald Dahl, writer, had managed to reach this huge amount. Prince has reached about $120 million, while Michael Jackson is the third, and you can see the rest of the best earning authors. So it practically benefits not just for the author, but probably still the granddaughters. Okay, this was very briefly, really briefly, just an intro to copyright. Now we would like to focus on industrial property rights. Okay, here I would like to paint a problem for you, the evergreen problem, how to look so smart out each time as you go out of the street, or even have been tried to be killed, or have been crossed the ocean, or crossed any kind of hills. James Bond always looks so smart. So how is it possible? Well, probably ironing is one of the answers. Now, our ancestors had got has also difficulties with this problem. Therefore, some wringers, tube wringers, and ironers and pressing machines has been invented to cope this problem. But I have to tell you that your problem is over. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you Effie, the intelligent robot which will take care of your items. Now let us see, it should also be a video. I'm not quite sure if you can see that, but let's see. Oh, somehow it didn't start. Let's go back and try to start it. So never iron again, meet Effie, the robot. Machine that irons and dries your clothes. Load your items onto the rail, press the start button, the interface, and the rest is taken care of Effie, and it will leave perfectly ironed. And everything takes just 3 minutes altogether, and you get everything back. Effie can take up to 12 items: shirts, t-shirts, trousers, skirts, and other items. Might fill the removable tank with water and add and tablet to it to your clothes if you want to, and your clothes on that iron patent pending process. Might add items, okay? And your phone will appear after done. That finish it will be back in water. After washing and ironing, just turn to it again. I do not know if you have seen anything or just heard me. What was the answer? Have you seen anything?
Yes, we saw it.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful.
Yes,
oh,
we saw it, but we didn't hear you very well.
Thank you very much. Okay, so this is Effie, the intelligent dryer, an ironing robot, an invention of the IoT world. Now let's see what can be protected within Effie. This could be a case study for us. Now, as Effie is a technical machine, let's start with patent, as patent protects technical solutions which are new, based on inventive step, and are industrially applicable. Now, we have seen in this short video footage that I have made a copy here, a short video scum for that, which says your clothes will get ironed by a patent pending process. So it already mentions that something have to do with patents. Now, probably it's a process, so they have invented a way of process, so a handling method on how to get your clothes ironed via that manner which EFI is using. But I would also mention that probably this rod with the ironing head could be probably patented. How it might get your clothes flat and well done. But additionally, we have heard that there are 12 places for 12 clothes in EFI to be ironed and dried at the same time. Now, take a problem. If we just hang 3 shirts or skirts there, it doesn't work for EFI to go through all the 12 places of possible clothes. So therefore, there must be some kind of sensing machinery, some sensing system, which analyzes the 12 places, whether there hung any clothes or not, and then it plans the route for ironing of this rod head. So therefore, there must be a sensor, a software or firmware which analyzes the data and which then plans the optimal route and then drives the machine, the hardware, to run that route for the ironing. This might be patentable as well, though we have to know that software themselves alone cannot be protected by patents, but as part of an integrated hardware system, software could be also patented. So, what other forms of protection might be there for us? Now, we have seen that EFI, like a sign, could be trademark. Now, the sign of trademarks could be either TM or R. Now, R means registered, so therefore you should be using R in a circle for just those trademarks which were actually registered, while trademarks could be used also for the 3-year free forms of trademark protection within the European Union. Now, trademarks protects the distinctive and representative signs, names, logos, slogans, and so on, used on your product and in relation to services. It is good to know that there might be different visual illustration of your marks. It is important to study whether if it's enough to protect them in one way, or the different forms, visual forms, should be protected in different trademarks. It is also important that you might have different trademark added for the same product. So EFI, like an identificator of your product, but it might use different kind of technologies or design as also a trademark. So for example, FEX shape might relate as a trademark to the design of your product, while Intel Iron could relate to the patented technology that you are using in your machine. As it has been already mentioned, the exclusivity period is unlimited, but you have to renew every 10th year. Now, the third form is design or industrial design protection, which might protect new appearances of products having an individual character. The exclusivity period already mentioned is 5 times 5 years, altogether 25 years. Actually, the external features, the external view of FEX shape, let's say, or FE, could be protected, basically the realization of the plans. We have seen that in the video that there is a Margaret-like clock feature within the FE system where you hang your clothes. It might be also protected as it has got a unique appearance. Now, graphical user interfaces either on your phone in the app or either on FE itself could be protected by design. So it's also good to make a screen where we can apply industrial design on our product. There might be several ways to apply them. And we mustn't forget about copyright. Copyright, we know that protects individual original literary, artistic, and scientific authorial works. So everything belonging to this category, which we use in connection with FE, could be protected. Now, what could be those? For example, web pages, information provided for users, professional user guide, leaflets, any kind of materials for marketing, or even TV spots could be or are definitely protected by copyright. Also, the plans of your product are protected, and also copyright protects, for example, the app design. So these are protected or could be protected parallelly by copyright and design as well. The copyright sign is a C in a circle which relates to copyright and you might use. Okay, and we have learned that the protection lasts for 70 years. Okay, what I would say, it's a real army knife, isn't it? So use it wisely. And I'm checking that we have got still some time. Am I right? Virag, am I right that we can? Okay, wonderful.
Yes, of course.
Then we would go a bit, just really a bit into details with the different forms of protection. And I would like to start with patents, which provide protection for technological invention. The first question would be, are ideas patentable? To solve this question, we should get a bit into details with patent protection. Now, patenting technical inventions, patent is basically a contract between the state or the society, take as you wish, and the inventor. The inventor provides a technical description on his or her invention. It's get published, so the public gets access for that, but in return, he or she gets exclusive rights for 20 years. In return, he or she must pay a nominal fee for that. And within that 20 years, let's say it's an opportunity window for the patent holder to earn back those excess investment requirements related to R&D, research and development, and might provide, let's say, a motivator and a honorary for the being creative and taking society ahead on its inventive, let's say, challenges. Now, the concept, the very concept of patents is to provide an incentive to individuals by recognizing their creativity, at the same time offering the possibility of material reward for their marketable invention. These incentives encourage innovation. Now, patent protection is aimed to assist in obtaining return on investment and to shorten the period of value of this. Now, let's see. A product life cycle looks somewhat like this. So you start with research. The gray line shows the cumulative profit or loss, so cash flow, which means that we start with 0, but then as we invest in research, the cumulative expenses start to pile up. Then, as the development goes ahead, the curve starts to be even more slopey, which means it requires even more and more resources. Now, until the product launch, these curves get even steeper until we reach the lowest point of it within the commercialization area, when actually the sales related income and the cost of the products get in equilibrium. And if we are lucky, and if we can keep up with the good sales, then those costs are getting to be overbalanced by the income generated by the technology, hopefully protected by our patents. As the costs invested and the income generated by the product or the service gets equal, that's actually the success point of the business. We also call it break even. From this point on, gets your business actually profitable. Now, the value of that is basically lasting until the break-even points practically, even though probably if you are showing up that you are successfully turning back from just giving out and losing profit, and you are showing up that you get profit and income from your product, then actually the real value of that is a bit shorter, but don't consider it now for the ease of understanding. Now, with applying for patents, the cash flow might look like this. In return for a bit more investment in the early phases in research and development, you might get an earlier income on your product and a quite steeper increase. Why is it possible? Because if you have a patent and you get basically monopoly rights and you have got control on the market, which is extremely valuable, then you might set as well the prices and might ask for a profit premium, which reduces the time required for breaking the break-even point, which means that the value of death period is shortened by a patent. And additionally, you might see that the inflection point of the red curve is a bit before the inflection curve of the gray curve. How is it possible to get income before, let's say, even the commercialization stage starts? Well, it might be possible if for areas which you can't get reach for, you might sell your IP or to establish a license agreement with someone else who make use of your product. And then it means that you get an income even without commercializing your invention. Now, it means that a certain amount of early investment, you might get a huge amount of reward later if you do everything right. Now, you might ask, what could be patented? Which are the patentable inventions? Where an invention, in order to be patentable, it must be new or novel, based on inventive step, or industrially applicable. Now, novel or new means that the same invention had not been made known for the society and is not available. Any kind of information that made public, it doesn't matter when it was made or in which language or in which media it was made, it is important that the publication or the access was made for the information. If you knew about it or not, that's not the question. Based on inventive step, it relates to the question whether based on the state of the arts actually comprises all of the known solutions or inventions known. If we add up together, the question is whether if your solution was evident for a professional. In other words, if the creative value put in your invention was enough or not. And industrially applicable means that your invention must be made use in any type of the industries, including agriculture. Now, what can be patented? Well, those are these types of patents, basically product patent, which might belong to equipment or material patents, process patents, or applications could be also patented. Now, there are some pictures here which depicts example for that. So, for example, a molecular formula of ibuprofen could be an example for materials could be patented. A tablet pressing machine could be an equipment patent, an example for an equipment patent. Now, the bioreaction process could be also patented. This could serve, for example, bioreaction processes are used nowadays in chemical industries to make the same type of chemical reaction in a small scale, which is much quicker and cost efficient than in huge tanks alone. And application, this is quite seldomly applied or used, is related mostly to drug companies who might patent different applications for their drug. For example, if it's, I don't know whether if it's well known that the Wonder Blue pill, Viagra, was not starting out as an application mainly used today, but it started out as a heart disease or a circulatory disease preventing drug. But if it turns out to be useful in other application areas, it might be patented as well. Now, if we know what's patentable, then we should know what are not patentables, by definition, non-inventions. Now, let's see. Ideas actually are non-inventions, discoveries, scientific theories, mathematical methods, aesthetical creations, schemes, rules, and methods for performing mental acts, playing games, or doing business are excluded from patentability, as well as program for computer. So basically, the answer for the initial question whether ideas are patentable, the answer is strictly given no, because they are too early stages. They are not actually the realized inventions themselves. They are just ideas, recognizing problems and maybe faint ideas how to solve them, but there is no yet proof of concept or other even developed methodologies to prove that our concept would work. Now, we have talked about that programs and for computers are not patentable per se, but they could be incorporated in a hardware-related invention, and then as part of it, it might be protected. Aesthetical creations, and as I have already mentioned, can be protected by designs. Okay, our second question could be where to protect our inventions, or how to roll out IP into other markets. Now, where to file for protection? And I'm talking about here about patents, but I would stick to it because that requires the most of expenses if you talk about the forms of protection available. Now, patent protection shall afford the holder of the patent the exclusive right to exploit the invention. Now, what is what does belong to exploitation? Well, on a legal matter, on the basis of the exclusive right of exportation, the patentee shall be entitled to prevent any others not having his consent from, in case of products make, use, put on market or offer for sale, stocking or importance for production for such purposes. Now let's stop here. It means that if we have got exclusive right of exploitation, then we can hinder others from making, using, putting on the market, offering for sale, stocking, importing for such purposes. The old school says that you should protect your invention in areas where you can sell your product or everything, or where you can make them. It's easy to make cheaper or invest quantity. There is also good to make a protection, to apply for protection. The newer schools say that if you identify where you can make the most of income on a geographical territorial base, then it's enough to protect your invention in those. Well, both of these schools have got their reasons and demerits. I do not want to go into details now, but it's quite similar in case of processes and products made by processes. If you take a closer look later on, we will not go into details. But what I would definitely suggest, calculate with the Pareto rule of your business plan. So figure out which are the 20% of the countries or markets where you gain about 80% of your income, and focus the protection on these and let the rest just go, because they take up too much of resources compared to the result that you can gain by them. Now, this might give a question about where to file for protection. The second major point is that we don't have to forget that industrial property rights are territorial protection rights. So patent, trademarks, and designs offer not a global, but just a territorial protection. They are valid only in those markets where applied for and registered and granted. So we in Hungary like to say that such thing as global patent, or for Hungarians világszabadalom, exists. That is simply not true. Defining territorial coverage of protection is quite an important strategic business decision, having a great effect on the cost of protection and also the income that could be reached by your patent portfolio. Therefore, it is quite advisable to turn for a patent attorney when making this decision. Now, the process of rolling out from a national to an international protection scheme is mostly looking out like a firework. What do I mean? Firework starts up from the ground in one piece as a piece of rocket. You fire it up, and then it reaches the top of the curve. It blows up, falls into small pieces of sparkles, and falls back to the ground, even at the very place where you have launched it. Now, it's quite similar with obtaining international protection or rolling out your protection. I would like to introduce this project via a European example of patenting. Now, there are different kinds of routes by means of which you can gear out on international grounds. Now, if you go on the national rounds, you start with a local application, and referring that local application, within 1 year you have got the opportunity to file patent applications abroad. If you go the international way, you might start with a national patent. You fire it up, let's say, in the international cloud, from where it blows up and falls back to national applications. quite similar one is the regional application or regional route, where you might start with a national application, fire it up to a regional cloud, from where it might fall down back to national IP protections. The difference between the international and regional is that the international is just basically an umbrella process where practically there is no examination and no granting. It just distributes. It has got like a distributional channel for having one point of contact, but still at the same time reaching multiple countries. Now, in the regional case, there might be examination and granting, so therefore the process might be quite unified. And there might be a combined route from where you start up again. You might start up again with a national filing, fire it up in the international cloud. From the international cloud, one, let's say, sliding down sparkle might be a regional application, which then takes effect as national protections at the end of the day. Now, quite similar systems actually exist not just for patents, but also for design or trademarks. So if you are interested, just either Google it or ask some professionals. The next question, which might come handy mostly for university related researchers, are how to set up a publication or marketing plans, but it might be definitely be interesting for companies as well. Publish or perish in the mirror of IP management. Now, to answer this question, it's important to get a bit more acquainted with the simplified process of patenting. Now, there are a few major dates. Now, filing date is the date when you apply for a patent, but we have learned that it's possible within 1 year of filing the first in-row patents to apply for a later one. So we have to distinguish the priority date, which is the date of filing of the first in-row or first in-line patent applications in the same topic, and the filing date, which is the actual date of your local, regional, or international application. So this might take 1 year opportunity window for you. Now then, in 1.5 years from the first from the filing date of the first patent application, your application gets published. Oh, twice publication, then it immediately should ring a huge bell in your brain, in your head, because it means that during the process of examination or earning a patent, your invention gets published. This means that if you still want to decide to keep your solution in secret, either because your chances to get a patent protection is low, or it's still in an early form of invention, or due to other reasons, you might reconsider your filing until this very date, before like 1 or 2 months before the publication date, when you still cancel the application, which means that your invention doesn't get publicated. But later on, there is no means for that. So therefore, what I would say, do not publish before the publication date, but definitely not before the 1 year period from the priority date. Why? Because the first patent in the row must not be exactly the same as the one, for example, rolled out in an international area, which means that you can still fine-tune your patents. So therefore, please do not publish anything better until the publication date, but at least for 1 year from the first patent application date. And then with the publication, your patents get temporarily protected, and after that the right holder can act up against probable infringers. And finally, your patent, if you are lucky and you did everything right, then gets granted. And then the temporary protection is turned into a final full-scale patent protection. Now, there might be also an important question. When are the milestones when you ought to turn for assistance to intellectual property information or patent information? Now, the role of patent information is tremendous, much heavier than you would ever imagine. According to studies, 80 to 90% of inventions published in patent documents won't be accessible anywhere else. So let's assume that you read all the scientific newspapers, magazine publications ever published in the world. Still, you are with 10 or 20% of the invention existing if you do not use patent documents. So therefore, I might say if you do not use patent documents information, then you are driving blind. Now here it is again quite the same graph which depicts the innovation life cycle, where we see research and development, market launch, expansion, mature, saturation, and decline. So where should you contact patent information on or IP information? Well, first of all, anytime when you face a problem you want to solve and you seem not to able to solve, then contact patent information and you will find hundreds and thousands of possible solutions, and analyze them. And if you find a solution, yeah, why not to try either as an idea giver for you, or you might analyze whether that actual patent protection is in force in your country or in your market field. Because if it's not, then you might use it free of charge. If it's still in force, then you might sit down with the owner, with the patent holder, and then ask for, let's say, a license agreement. Another, let's say, opportunity for use patent information, it's quite an important one, is before you make a product launch, then you should make an FTO search. FTO stands for Freedom to Operate. With this search, we might be able to analyze whether if you are infringing other rights by launching your product on the market. If you are if your FTO is granted, then there should be no problem. If it seems that you might infringe others' right, then before putting your product on the market, it's good to make precautionary steps. I have to tell you that making an FTO search is irrelevant whether you have applied for patent or not, because you might have even a patent for yourself. You might still realize the patents of others when you are commercializing your invention. But the third point when you should definitely go for a patent information or data service is when you make a decision whether to protect your invention or not. This is called novelty search or state-of-the-art search. This is when we compare our solution to the known solution in the world. You cannot make it without using a patent information service. And if you have got patent protection, then you definitely should do an enforcement search, meaning that you are keeping an eye on either commercialized marketed products, whether they infringe your patent, or to keep an eye on patent databases to figure out whether later coming out patents realize your own patented solution, because then you should also keep an eye on those commercialization of the secondary patents, because then it means that by realizing the patents which depend on yours, you might get a chance to get a royalty. This was about the technological side of protection, and I think our time is over. But if we have got 10 minutes, we might go through trademarks and design, but it's not compulsory. You have got the material in your hand, or you will soon have the material in your hand. So you might consult it. And if you have got any question, then of course you might contact me. So I'm turning to Virag. What should we do then?
I think we can go through the trademarks also, just quickly.
Okay. Really shortly. So trademarks are not for your technology, but for your business. It's a business tool. Trademarks are actually lightning buoys of the ocean. They have products for them and help.
Sorry, the voice is not so good during the video.
Sure, definitely. Good. Then I repeat the most important thing. So trademark basically help consumers to navigate among the similar products and services on the market and inform them and help them to make judged decision of choice. A trademark is a sign with a distinctive character, enabling differentiation between our own product and services of those of competitors. It has been mentioned that the timeline is unlimited, though you have to renew it every 10 years. And you can find two types of indication of trademarks, either R in a circle or TM in a circle. Now you can see that trademarks might run for hundreds of years, like in case of Coca-Cola. The trademark protection exists since 200 years, 150 years, somewhat years back. And of course, there are newer companies like Starbucks who have protected the trademark in 1971. What types of trademark do we know about, or should we consider? Well, there are word marks like Adidas. There are 2D shape marks like logos, the same for Adidas, or combined marks which comprise of words and logos like the Adidas triangular combined mark. Other types are alphanumeric or word marks, like the one of Banks and Olufsen's. 3D marks are also possible. You see some examples for that, like the Mercedes 3D mark, or the iPod is also trademarked as a special trademark. The Toblerone, this triangle is also shape is also trademark, and the bottle of Coca-Cola is also 3D trademark. Or you can have slogans, just do it, or I'm loving it, could be an example for those. But there are other forms as well, like sun marks from Nokia, I'm quite sure you have recognized, but also animations. So Nokia has protecting not just the sun marks that you have just heard, but also this intro screen on their phones. It's protected by trademark, but there are also different other types. So European trademarks of Lamborghini for the swing doors by car opening up, that's also protected by trademark, or United Kingdom trademark of Kraft food for chocolate, like an orange slices falling up or down. But also colors are possible to trademark. You see here quite a lot. We haven't even thought about that there are so many colors that are trademarked exist in our world, but actually they do. And they are quite interesting, actually. But let's see what are the criterions for a trademark. Well, the absolute requirements are the representability related to a trademark, which means that you have to be able to not actually anymore depict it graphically, but somehow to represent it, which could be stored in digital databases. So, for example, a few years back, let's say a decade back, in the EU, it was obligatory to have a graphical representation of your sign mark. Therefore, for example, the Nokia sound could be protected, but not it couldn't be reached with the lion roar of MGM, which was protected in the US because their graphical representation was not required, but in the EU it was not possible to be registered. Nowadays, as you can even include in an MP3 file your sound, which want to be protected, you can have even the lion roar protected. It must be distinctive, so it has to stand out from the rest of the trademarks already filed, and it must not be descripted, so it must not come from the origin of your product, of the functionality of your product, of your of the quantity or quality of your product, but it has to relate something else. And relative requirements, which stands that it must not be identical to and cannot be confused with previous trademarks. Now, we have also to know that trademarks are related to the so-called NIST classification of goods and services. When you apply for a trademark, you have to indicate to which classes of goods or services you want to file them. It means that you can use your trademark in those, let's say, market niches, and others might file quite the same in different classes, goods and services, and there would be no clash. So therefore, it's quite important to set up a good list of goods and services according to the NIST classification, because it's good to know that later on you can't widen the scope. Now, knowing all of this, let's see, and I am listening to you, what would you say about having a trademark for skin defender for cosmetics? Well, actually, it lacks distinctiveness and purely it's descriptive. Therefore, there is quite a little chance that you will get a trademark for that. And now I really listen to you. Gramophone for a retro iPod MP3 player. What would you say for consumer electronics? Could you get it or not? Anyone?
Yes, because it does not relate to the, I mean, it is just a shape that makes the sound, not the sound itself.
Yeah, but a gramophone, if we take the gramophone itself, is a name for an electronic or non-electronic device that makes sounds. So therefore, it might, for consumer electronic, not be a good chance to get. However, how about granny phone? Now, phone, it's quite different, but granny relates that it's a retro MP3 layer, so it might get a chance to get the trademark protected. So that was about trademarks, and for design, just a few slides more. If you say that trademarks were the light boys for you on the west sea or ocean of the market, then we might say that design is your aesthetic fishing hook for the customers. Well, basically, design protects the unique individual characteristic appearance of the product. It provides also exclusive right, and it's frequently used in conjunction with software, graphical user interfaces, or with game characters. We know that a whole industry was based on, for example, cartoon characters and their merchandising. Now, what does design protect? Design, as already mentioned, protects the unique ornamental, so aesthetic aspects of an article, its appearance. If it's anything to relate to functionality, it's excluded from design protection, then it should go to probably the patent protection. Now, by design, you can protect shapes or configuration, I mean 3D, and or patterns or ornamentations which are two-dimensional. And we have to know that design doesn't protect itself the marketed product, which you might say use it trademark for that, or it doesn't protect the technical function of the product. That's the role of the patents. In order for a design to be registered, it has to be new or novel. If it has not yet been previously disclosed to the public, but you have, at least in Europe, a 1 year grace period from the starting date of being marketed. And it has to be original. If it has to significantly differ from known designs or a combination of known design features. Now, there is a specific form of design protection in the European market. It was already mentioned at the beginning of our conversation, which is the unregistered community design, which yields protection for a period of 3 years from the date on which the design was first made available to the public within the territoriality of the European Union. However, you mustn't forget that after the 3 years, the protection cannot be extended. Now, if adding up the registered form of design to a non-registered community design form, many companies use it, that they roll out their product on the market, their design, and within the 1 year period, they test it, whether if it works to file a design application or not. And if it's a successful product, then they, within a 5 year, they file protection, which might sustain the design to be protected after the 3 years when the unregistered community design lapses, and the rest they just make use of the 3 years protection of the unregistered community design. But after the 1 year, when they have made this decision, they cannot alter it. We also have to know that similarly to trademarks, there are a classification system called Locarno classification of designs, and when we apply for a design, we have to indicate in which class we want to have the protection valid in. Okay, and just to make you remember, this is probably the most important slide for today. For this, you can turn for help by any means when you are having a problem, whether, what kind of protection, and when and how to apply for, then turn for this slide and it might help. Otherwise, yes, it's the IP system is a real army knife. It is quiet, so therefore use it as well creatively and proactively. However, if you want to find out more or you have questions, then the Hungarian IP office has quite a wide range of professional materials for your access. Unfortunately, they are available only in Hungarian, or you may contact me as well, or any professional IP professional or a patent lawyer or IP professional. Thank you very much for your attention, and I am for your service.
Thank you so much, András, for the interesting and practical presentation. I don't know if somebody has a question. Just feel free to ask now. If not,
Yes,
I don't know, Christian. Yeah.
I'm also teaching this entrepreneurial class, and it's somehow when it comes to some, just giving some ideas to the students about patenting and so on, they're very excited that they can do this. When you start explaining that it can take time and it is rather expensive for an SME and so on and so on, they get rather discouraged. So can you suggest anything? Because especially, and well, if you have enough time, I will probably present some of this data as well. But some of the discouragement, so the most discouraging issues that were identified through the survey was that it takes a lot of time to patent, and the big, or like the heaviest one is the fact that people don't usually understand where a technology is worth being protected. So can you suggest anything or something that a smaller company can do, because big one have a lot of R&D expertise and resources to back them up in this regard, but for smaller ones it is rather risky sometimes, and one of the reasons they are discouraged to include into this IPR stuff.
Sure, definitely. Thank you very much for the question. I'm really happy for this question, because I have been dealing for 10 years with IP teaching, and I had got the same problem and impression, and I could talk about it like 2 hours. So the good news that I have got quite a lot of suggestions, but I don't want the others to be bored with all of them. But what I would start with, and really shortly, and if you contact me, I would be really happy to talk personally to you about this question, is the beginning few slides when you are addressing the IP question from an economical point of view, that to show that if you are a startup, you have got no real estate, no machinery, no carpool, nothing. So basically the material assets in your company is zero. You have got probably debts, but nothing more. But on the other hand, you might have already developed IP. Basically, your concept, your idea might have walked down the way where already an IP have been developed, and that IP could be assessed, I mean valued. And this value could be represented in the company books. And if you don't do that, then especially in case of startups, you are really down to earth by zero. But on the other hand, you might have a chance to show up even million of euros or dollars. And this is also a tool for making your company more valuable. Some kind of IPs could be, for example, depreciated. So when you are already in, okay, it's a later stage, when you're already in the commercial stage, or at least when still you are a young company, but still you are addressing to reach in, let's say, 3, 4, 5 years commercialization, then you can deduct the tax base if you are cleverly getting the value of IP into the books, and an immaterial asset is formulated, then you can reduce, for example, the tax base. There are also tax deduction schemes that are built on IP. It's a sin not to make use of them, but most of the companies, especially young and smaller companies, do not even know about that. Additionally, yes, patents might look a bit horrific in price, I might say, but that's not true if you take in comparison with the market value that those assets generate. So if we are talking about, let's say, 10 million, 20 million forints, it's not a great deal if you are launching a product and you are calculating the annual income generated by the product. So yes, before you get to the commercialization, then it's an investment which is which might be heavy, especially for small companies who are not backed by, for example, VC. But later on, these costs will basically diminish. On the other hand, to get for a smaller and newer and technology-intensive startup, to get VC or angel investment or whatever kind of form of investment, the more reliable those investors are, the more they require some kind of to be sure that your value that is incorporated in your IP is yours, is valid, and will generate revenue. Now, you cannot have this security without an IP, because if you have got a great idea, you have a great solution, then definitely others will start to imitate or to copy you. And if you do not secure your IP in the first run, then you can do quite nothing. So therefore, it's really important. And the last thing, two things which I would definitely mention, I have made a comparison on how much companies spend on marketing every year and how much is needed to spend on IP protection. And I have made a comparison on a per capita cost of marketing, which gives you just the possibility that they hear about your product or service, and they might be converted. I mean, conversion might take place, but that's nothing for granted. So we don't know whether if someone hears about your product will buy it or not. But if we make a comparison, a per capita cost of patents, then we can be sure that if someone is buying your product, then will definitely yield for you. And if we compare those prices of marketing and IP protection, then earning a per capita cost of IP protection is about 3% than the usual marketing per capita expenses. If you are interested, I am really happy to share that with you. And the last thing that I would come up with for your companies is take not just a patent point of view, but a holistic point of view. Take those, a table in front of you and look out which are the alternatives that you might use instead of a patent. You might come up that even your solution is easier to keep separate, and then there is no need to apply for a patent, because patents will definitely expire in 20 years and get published during the process. If you can keep something secret for longer, there is no really mean for a patent protection, might not be. So it's also a strategic decision. And the last thing is that, which we were not talking about today, is that there exists a form of protection called utility model protection, not available in every countries, but quite a huge number of countries. This is also called petit patent in France, so small patent protection, where the fees are much slower and the requirements for not patentability, but for protection are much smaller. So therefore it means that there are a huge number of options and questions to be addressed and answers for either a personal, inventor, or a company. And one thing we should also talk about, that there are some financing schemes either run by the European Union or national schemes, which might either by refinancing or pre-financing offering the SMEs or the inventors some financial help to obtaining those rights. So adding all together these, someone must find a way out. Okay, especially for these young students who are creative, who are motivated, definitely you can overwin them.
Well, just to share you the idea, usually, of course, I never go into this that much knowledge. I'm not that knowledgeable about patents as you are.
Come on.
No, it is true. So objectively true.
I can help you with that, no problem.
I will take your help. So one thing that they actually think, and this is how I usually win them over, that the patenting is still good even after this headache that you have to go and just heavy thinking about patent, is that I ask them to think about an exit strategy if something goes wrong. And whenever they say that they will patent, they usually come with the idea, okay, we can license it or sell it to someone who could have it. So then we at least get some money back. And yeah, it was a bad idea for us, it didn't work. Well, we at least get, dry out of the water. So that is one thing that they are quite accustomed to. And okay, yeah, let's risk patenting rather than sell our shoes to get from our debts.
Exactly. Just referring back to nowadays news where every day it comes out that for this $100,000 company was sold, it was founded 4 years ago, 5 years ago, patent is not even granted, but still. Yes, exactly. That's also a very good way to cope with this problem. Definitely. Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, Virag, do we go forward with my presentation? I mean, we're quite late. I'm not sure it's. I can try to make it. I can try to make it fast, but okay.
Maybe we should skip the presentation if you do not mind, because we are
not at all, to be fair. And to be fair, there is nothing interesting to be said after such an interesting debate today. Really, I mean, the survey is not representative. I can take 30 seconds to just highlight the main findings. So if somebody is interested, I will not even put the slides because it might kick me again out, and we don't want that. So basically, what we found is that there is a big lack of competences generally in the field. Only 8% say that they have, the survey is not representative. It was only done with higher education and vocational education students and teachers, technology transfer offices, and some other attorneys who are dealing in the patent or in IPR field. And we reach over 100 SME, which is kind of the thing that we are proud about, that we get that many answers from them, and one of the most important data there. So what we realized is that only 1/3 of the whole respondents actually have at least basic or some theoretical knowledge about patents, and only 8 have kind of experience and found knowledge to know how to deal them. And this allowed us to group the whole data into 3 categories: unfamiliar with IPR, or those who have basic and knowledgeable some basic and theoretical knowledge about IPR, at least received a class that taught them some things, how to distinguish copyrights from trademarks and patents. And then there is again this knowledgeable group, which is mostly represented by TTOs, have a rather good coverage from SMEs, apparently those who are actually engaged in the patenting and work with that, but still a lot of them are not doing with this. So what we also found is that there is probably a very vicious cycle, whereas people who do not know what are the benefits of the patents and have no technical understanding how patenting works are very discouraged to do this, because in their ways we actually get some answers that some are not believing that the national regulations can actually help them protect, even they patent this. So this is kind of this very generic fear that they have, that okay, this is just going to be a lot of money and effort wasted. And again, as I said, there are really a lot of fears, and people somehow do not understand, and we believe it to be based on the fact that they don't understand what are the full benefits of the patenting. If they knew that, they would learn technicalities and what are the technical issues for them to patent and to get this. So until these two things are not working together, they're just discouraging each other. You don't know how it works, you don't know the benefits, you don't know the benefits, you don't know how it works, and it goes like this. What we truly believe is that our project aimed at producing these trainings can actually help break this cycle. So, or at least start breaking the cycle, because we know our limits as well. So this is one thing, because there was a lot of the issues in the database, because a lot of SMEs don't have knowledge about patents. That is true, but there is still a good side of them that has some understanding that is important. But when you go to the students, less than 20% had any kind of even basic knowledge. Most of them didn't even heard the term IPR before, which is a little bit concerning, because these are the people who will go working in a few years, and they will be the ones moving forward. Of course, we understand that this is also a practical need. When you start working, you learn these practical issues, and it might get important to you to learn them. But again, it might be easier for the companies to already employ someone with technical understanding of why the patenting is important, what benefits can it grant you, and exactly as you say, yeah, you use this kind of different patenting strategies, copyrights, trademarks, and patents that actually work together in a combination to make you secure a market share. So yeah, just to highlight, there is a vicious cycle, there is a real educational gap in terms of that, and the more you work with the patents, apparently the more you understand and realize that they are important. So these are the 3 main points I wanted just to highlight, and I hope I made it in less than 5 minutes. So thanks for listening. If you have any questions, I can also maybe share my presentation. If somebody is interested, you can ask Virok or maybe send me an email. Or if you ever have, you also can actually access or will be able to access the report when we put it online on our webpage. So there is 80 pages for you to enjoy our work in this report.
There is a short version of the results, so I can send you, András, if you would like to.
Definitely.
Yeah,
I would appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I can return it as well for you, because in the Hungarian IP office has created, like, every 2 years probably they are making some similar surveys. So if you were interested, I would definitely share with you.
Yes, because I mean, one of the fears of our survey is that it is not representative. So if we can compare with something that is
sure
more or less scientific, it would help us to understand how much were we wrong in and in what direction.
Or what are the trends, or the geographical differences. Definitely. So it's good to start from somewhere. Yeah, definitely. Comparative analysis.
Yeah, thank you. That would be very nice. Thanks a lot. So should I say the ending words, or I think Virag, it is your honor, I believe.
Yeah, so thank you so much for joining us, and we will update you about the following webinars, and also I will send you the presentations from today.
Thank you very much. Goodbye. It was a pleasure to be with you, and wishing you good luck with the project.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
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 Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.
Bye bye. Thank you.